we call spring apprentice training. So for wrestling officials, we have what we call our apprentice officials, which are the guys that are starting out, and then we have our regular officials. So you guys are actually called spring apprentices because you officiate during the spring season only, versus my other apprentices are usually guys that are in college or have jobs and they officiate high school events. Although last year Max got to officiate because he was injured and he made a lot of money. He made a good amount of money last year. So tonight's session, we're going to cover some basic stuff, just about the role of the official, some of the requirements and how it works. So it'll be refresh for Max on some of the stuff. It'll be new for you, Devin. And then we'll talk about the building blocks of officiating and of the sport of wrestling. And these are key things that you just have to understand, key concepts. If you understand these concepts, then officiating and making judgments about stuff will be really straightforward and easy. So the task of officiating is not all art and it's not all judgment and guesswork. It actually can be pretty straightforward exercise. So I will teach you the basics that you'll need to know. The goal of training spring apprentices is, are you here for training?
Yeah.
Come on in. What's your name?
JJ.
You're JJ. Okay. What does JJ stand for? So we're just getting started. So anyway, we'll cover some basics in tonight's session. There'll be some homework. I've got a set of homework for you guys to do before next session. So you'll have to watch some videos online. So you'll spend maybe close to an hour in some homework between now and next Tuesday, okay? That'll get you prepped so that when we do our session next time is going to be focused strictly on sort of actual mechanics of officiating and applying your training to actual scenarios, okay? So we'll be putting in scenarios like, hey, is that a takedown? Is that a reversal? Would you award an escape there? Okay, so that's why the second session is so important to be in person, because we're just gonna do hands-on stuff. Okay. All right. And JJ, how old are you?
I'm
17. And what weight do you wrestle?
Huh?
What weight do you wrestle?
145.
145. Okay. And you drive? You have your own car you can drive around, or what's that? Okay, do you have somebody that can give you transportation on the afternoons? Okay, no worries. Go ahead and take a seat wherever you want. All right, so first thing, when I train guys to officiate, whether it's high school kids or adults, I always start with sort of some big picture stuff because I want to make sure that people enter into officiating the right way and for the right reasons, okay? So first thing I want to tell you about is what I call the role of the official. There's really 4 things that are part of your role. Okay, and Max, because you have officiated last year, whenever we talk about certain things, if you want to jump in and add a little anecdote or support a point, feel free, because the guys that are newer and haven't done this sometimes will get value out of hearing from some guy that just went through all this, because it's kind of an intimidating endeavor somewhat, right? And what I always tell guys when they're starting out is that if you've wrestled before, if you were a competitor in the sport, you already know 80% of what you need to know to officiate. You know kind of what a takedown is, you know what a near fall is, a pin, all that stuff, right? It's just that 20% of stuff that you don't know that's part of the job of the official and the rules that are involved that you have no clue about as a wrestler. So you'll run into situations where you didn't need to know as a competitor what to do. Guy lifts another guy in a double leg takedown, and the fire alarm goes off in the middle of that. Now what? You know, guy's getting half Nelson put on him, and he starts screaming as he's about halfway rolling through. What do? Like, that's the kind of stuff that as a wrestler you don't really need to know, but as an official you do. You got to make a ruling at that moment. So that 20% of stuff, I can't teach you all that and train you on it here in 2 sessions. Like, the goal of this training is not to train you to be a state level official at the MAC Classic. It's to train you to be an adequate official to do middle school and kids wrestling. And then if you stick with it over time, then that 20% you're going to reduce it down to zero, right? If you're a good official, experienced official, you'll take that 20% stuff you don't know now, and you'll just over time you'll just learn more and more, and you'll get down to less and less things that you would run into that you don't know what the answer is. Okay, so 4 things about the role of the official. Number one, your main job is you administer the competition, just like a judge over a trial. That's what you do, right? There is no contest if you don't have an official, right? Like nobody cares about sports where there's no referees and no uniforms, right? And the pickup basketball game that happened outside after school, nobody knows about, nobody cares, right? But when Tahoma High School plays basketball against Kentwood and there's guys with referees out there and and cheerleaders and all this, well, that's now people care, right? They have standings and they qualify for state and all that other stuff. So you administer the competition. That's your number one important role, right? Okay. Number 2, you are ultimately responsible for all the judgments and rulings, and that can be a heavy responsibility, um, especially when you are officiating at the highest levels and your decision makes the difference between some kid goes to state or doesn't go to state, some guy's the state champion or not. Like that stuff matters, right? And that's your responsibility though. And so when you're in that role, you just have to be ready to accept that responsibility and live it out and act on it, okay? The third role for you is you're a role model. So when you're out on a wrestling mat, how many people at one time maximum do you see on a wrestling mat during a dual meet or a tournament? 2, 3, or 3, right? 2 competitors and a referee. And oftentimes you will only see one out there, and who is that? The referee, right? Because you two shook hands, and off you went to go shake the coach's hands, and now we're waiting for the next 2 guys to come out. So the thing is, you're a role model because you're very visible out there. Everybody in the gym is looking down at a mat, and there's only 3 people max on that mat. One of them is you, and so you're very visible. And so you guys are in high school, and sometimes you may have like little brothers or something that are on a team, that you're going to officiate or you're going to see at an event, or kids that are your from, little brother's friends or whatever, right? Like, and you just got to remember that you're in a role, and you can't be sort of like goofing around with these middle school kids or something when you're the guy wearing the referee's uniform and blowing the whistle, right? And when you're an adult, you have to make sure that you're setting the right example too. Like, I don't know that this is true, but somebody was like writing on the Washington Wrestling Report, the other day that over at some sub-regional where they said, oh yeah, and the creepy ref was like pointing at, hot girls in the crowd or something like. Now, I don't know if that's true, but the thing is that somebody would write something like that, it just makes my heart drop that somebody would think, oh, a referee is like, again, being a bad example. And how do they know he's a referee? Because he's wearing the uniform. So you are a role model. Just keep that in mind, okay? And then the 4th thing is you're a steward of the sport of wrestling. So, I wrestled, in middle school. I wrestled in high school. I wrestled in college, right? And back when I was wrestling 40 years ago, there were guys that were officiating and coaching and stuff like that back then. And ever since, and I've been officiating now for almost 30 years. So the thing is, I'm part of trying to pass the sport on to other people. And if you officiate, that's what you're doing, right? Like these guys coming up behind you, you're part of passing the sport on to them. We don't have officials, we don't have coaches, the sport will die. So, being an official is part of that. We're trying to help the sport of wrestling continue on. So somebody's got to do it. There's actually, in a lot of places, officiating shortage. So one of the other things you'll hear is you hear a lot of complaints about at sub-regionals how, wow, there was not enough referees to cover everything. And that's true. There weren't. Or that there were like really, really inexperienced referees working certain district tournaments and league tournaments last weekend. And there were. I had a number of guys who were working at district tournaments that were in their very first year of officiating. Now, if you're a guy trying to win your league or moved from league onto regionals, you probably wouldn't feel so comfortable if somebody said, that official over there's pretty new. Like, because you would think, oh, he might make more mistakes. And if he makes a mistake on your match, it might cost you advancing to regionals or to state or something, right? So, you know, you need to have officials. And right now, in our area, we're not hurting for officials. Like I have enough, but other associations around me, they they don't. They're always asking to borrow guys from me. So you're part of, keeping the sport going. Okay. So keep that in mind. All right. So what are the four roles of official I just said? What's one of them? Role model. That's one. Kevin. What's that? Can't goof around. That's part of being a role model. What else? Yeah. And what are you responsible for? The judge. Yeah. What is another thing? Yeah. You got to administer that competition, right? So those are all things that are part of your role. So that's big picture stuff. So let's talk about some of the logistics and mechanics about officiating. You'll be joining the Pacific Northwest Wrestling Officials Association, PNWOA. That's our label. And that's a group of wrestling officials. And so there's a parent organization we have called the Washington Officials Association that sits over the top of all sports: football, basketball, wrestling, baseball, whatever. And so wrestling is one of those sports. And so the WOA is over the top of all the officials. And then there are different sports underneath the WOA. And then for each sport, there's different geographies. So you sort of had, football, basketball, wrestling, or whatever. And then you say King County. There's a certain association that does football in King County and one that does basketball in King County. And we do wrestling in King County, basically. So uh, your local association, PNWA, is the one that's responsible for making sure that you get work, that we train you, and all that other stuff. Okay. Now, there's two things about being part of the WOA and being part of PNWA is that there are dues that we have to pay to be members of those organizations. So, for those of you that do the training and then you finish the certification, PNWA takes care of your WA dues. So WA dues are $40. Our association will take care of that for you. So you don't have to worry about paying for that. But there's also dues to be a member of PNWA, which is $25 a year. That you'll pay. Now the thing is, you'll end up making something on the order of about $55 every time you officiate a middle school dual meet. And that's, well, it's a little more than that, but you get some of that deducted out. So what you take home is about 55. Okay. So that's pretty good for 2 hours of work. I don't think there's many jobs available to guys your age that would pay you like 20, $25 an hour, right? To do something, and in some cases you probably would just enjoy anyway. If you wrestle, you like wrestling, so it's a good deal. So what happens is we have an online tool. It's called Arbiter. Okay, so you get onto Arbiter through the internet. We give you an account, give you a login, so you can get on into Arbiter, and that's the tool we use to schedule things. So what happens in Arbiter is I get schedules from the schools. I have all those already. And so I know next Thursday, the 15th, there's a round of dual meets going on in the Kent-Tahoma Middle School League, right? You guys won't be able to officiate those because you're busy, practicing and getting ready for state. But the thing is, I have all their events in the tool, okay? Then what happens is I start putting names to those. Say, okay, Devin, I'm going to send you to Meeker Middle School for a dual meet. Okay, I'm going to send Max over to Summit Trail or whatever. So in the tool, when I put you to an assignment, the tool will send you an email and say, okay, you have an assignment. You click on it, you open up, okay, I'm going to Meeker on February 29th or whatever, 28th. So the tool is real useful that way. Email is important, right? So the reason I need your email address is because that becomes your login to Arbiter, your email address. and all the communications are done basically through email. It's by exception that I'll phone call you, okay? So I have literally on the order of like 60 officials that I run. I can't afford and I don't have the time to be calling all of them individually. Hey, JJ, did you get your assignment over Meeker on the 22nd? Like, if I had to do that for every guy, like, I just don't have enough hours in the day. But the tool sends you a notification. So the thing is, you need, and usually guys your age aren't really all that frequent users of email, but you need to be an email monitor if you're going to officiate, okay? You got to watch your email. That's how stuff is going to get communicated to you. By exception, I'll phone call guys, because if I assign Max to something on Thursday, and then on Wednesday night he calls me and goes, I got a 103-degree fever. I don't think I can work tomorrow, Bob. Then all of a sudden, okay, let me see who's available. All right, JJ's available. I can put him on the assignment, but I'm going to call him or text him and say, JJ, can you be at, Mill Creek tomorrow for the dual meet, right? So in those cases, that's when I will contact someone directly, because it's such short notice. Because if the system sends you an email Wednesday night, you might not see it. Go to school Thursday, and and suddenly, like, you have no clue that after school you need to be heading over to Mill Creek. So I'll call in those cases. Otherwise, you just got to monitor your email, okay?
So by the end of this, we're gonna be signed up for that,
What's that?
right? By the end of this, we'll be signed up for that.
Yeah, I'll give you an account in Arbiter. Actually, I'll wait till I get your social security number, but by the time the training ends, you'll be, well, I need to get you in Arbiter because you've got other things you need to do that require you to be able to get into Arbiter. So like Max has done these things before, and I'll explain them to you. But there's certain training online from the WOA you have to do to get certified. Yeah, every year you have to do it. Okay. Um, so anyway, Arbiter, it's pretty intuitive tool, right, Max? Nothing tricky about it. Just it's pretty easy to use. You guys, what's that? Yeah, yeah. So it's pretty self-explanatory. You'll Once you get your login, just go in and start exploring it a little bit. It's pretty easy. Um, this is a job. If you're unreliable and you get assigned to something and you just don't show up, or you're sort of careless about stuff, I'll fire you. I can't afford to have, some mat without an official on it at some middle school because I have a flaky guy working for me, whether it's a high school kid or an adult. Um, Unfortunately, I had to basically let go of a guy last year. Went through the training. His very first assignment, you know, he calls me. He's supposed to be at some school at 3:30. He calls me at like 3:20. Oh, Bob, I'm not gonna be able to go there today. It's up in Linwood, It's sort of like, all right. And this is a really horrible time to tell me that. Like, I can't scramble somebody and get them over there in Linwood in the next hour, hour and a half. Like, these schools, these are middle schoolers. They have to like be done and get on a bus at 5. So I fired that guy. Now it's one thing, everybody's going to run into situations where, again, they may have a flat tire or whatever. You get sick the morning of, that kind of stuff's going to happen. So if something's happening that gets in the way of you fulfilling your assignment, the key thing is you just need to let me know as soon as possible. If you don't, I mean, I've literally had like guys got lost, and they call me and like, I can't find this school. I say, okay, like, you're supposed to be there like 5 minutes ago. Like, all right, where are you? That's fine. Like, that stuff happens, right? I'll call the school, let them know you'll be there in 10 minutes, right? So, or again, you're sick. You wake up that morning, you're sick. Hey, Bob, I can't go. Okay, great. At least I have like 8 hours to get somebody there. But the whole calling me at 3:30 in the afternoon saying you're not going to come the day of the assignment, that doesn't work. So just be reliable, and you'll be fine, okay? And as soon as you know something's going to get in the way, just let me know. The more time I have, the easier it is to sort of fill this stuff, okay? Your pay, you'll get paid. It's $44 is the is what I charge the school for middle school dual meet, and out of that, because of certain fees that we have to pay for being, part of the WA and getting all these assignments and stuff, you'll get paid 38.5 bucks out of that 44 bucks, okay? And then plus you get a travel fee. Travel fee is just a flat $18. So if I assign you to some event, if you live 2 blocks from, what is it, Maple View, or what's the name of the Maple View? So if you live 2 blocks from where I assign you, that you're going to get paid 18 bucks in travel. But if I send you up to Northwood or whatever, it's 18 bucks for that too. So anyway, that's why I say you're going to make about 55 bucks per, because you'll get 38 bucks for your dual meet fee, you'll get an 18 bucks for a travel fee, and then there's a 6% assigner fee that comes out of your dual meet fee that goes to PNWA. So out of the 38 bucks, 6% of that, like $1.80 or $2 or something, right? So 36 bucks plus 18 bucks, you're 54 something, right? Okay. So, and then there's exhibition matches. So when you officiate, you finish your dual meet, and then they go, okay, well, this kid and this kid, can they wrestle? Sure. Okay, we're match this guy and this guy up. But every one of those, you're going to get paid $2. So you're perfectly happy when they line up 15 other kids to wrestle. Oh, bring it on. $2 for every one of those, or $2.5 actually this year. So $2.5 for every one of those. Okay. So finish your dual meet, and if they send out exhibitions and match up guys, you just count the number there are, and you'll let me know afterwards, and then I'll add $2.50 per exhibition match. Okay. I have some guys in some areas, not so much this area, because they have a JV mat and a varsity mat in this league. Up in the leagues I have up north, like up in Bothell and Kirkland and stuff, they only have one mat, and then they'll have, the varsity will face off, and then they bring out all the sixth graders and JVs and stuff. And these guys are making more on their exhibition match fee than they are on the dual meet fee.
Oh, JV?
Well, no, because there's a JV, because there's two mats going. You'll get, in this league, you'll get assigned, there'll be one guy on one mat and another guy on another. So you don't generally have as many chances for exhibition matches here unless you're doing Meridian, and they have like 80 kids in their room. And then they march out a bunch of kids for exhibitions. But up north, some of these schools, there's only one official assigned. He does the varsity, and now he's literally doing like 25 exhibition matches afterward. He's making more money on the exhibitions than he is on the dual meet. So, you just have to count those and report them to me afterward. So what happens when you have an assignment, you get it in Arbiter, you can mark a thing that says accept or decline. If you decline it, I'll get notified. It'll say, okay, that he declined. Then I know to try to give it to someone else. If you accept it, then that's all cool. You just fulfill your assignment, and then in the aftermath, that afternoon or evening after you finish your assignment, you just text me or send me an email if you had exhibitions to say, hey, I was out at Matson, and we had 4 exhibitions after I finished my meet. Okay, 4 times 2.5, that extra $10, right? So I'll record that. Just send me the text or email after you get done with the event, before you go home or when you get home, okay? And like I said, here in this league, there's 2 mats generally. Sometimes if the school doesn't have a big enough turnout, then they'll reduce that down to 1. I think like Tahoma Gold, like last year, they didn't have very high numbers, and so they said, we only need 1 official, we're only running 1 mat. And Meeker Middle School has done that in the past as well sometimes. So the thing is, if there's 2 officials assigned, though, what I'll do is, if there's an experienced guy, like say Max is on the same assignment, like if I send the two of you out to Mill Creek, the more experienced guy will work the varsity, the less experienced guy will work the JV, okay? And that's just because the more experienced guy, the varsity meets a little more, at stake, a little more pressure, and we want to have the better, more experienced official do that, okay? All right, any questions about Arbiter, about fees, all that stuff? If you work a lot, literally, I had a guy last year who made over $1,000 just officiating in February, March. That kid officiated a lot of stuff, and he was up north, and he was, again, up in Redmond and stuff, and making buku dollars on exhibition fees, for all the stuff he got assigned to. Um, so anyway, you got a chance to make good money. I limit the number of guys I let have this opportunity because I want you to make money. I want you to make like $500-600 in the next 6 weeks. Okay. All right. Let's talk uniform. You will have to invest in some uniform equipment, okay, to officiate. So, standard uniform for the referee consists of striped shirt. So you've seen these, right? When you get wrestling, the guys officiating. These things, just by itself, they have a plain shirt, doesn't have any patches on it or anything. It will cost like $20. This is what they call the sublimated shirt. This is what we are required to wear if we officiate high school events. And you see how it has there's a patch screen printed in there, a WOA patch, sort of like your uniform might have the bear on it or something, right? Like that stuff sort of screen printed in there. This shirt costs like $35. Now the thing is, so if you're close to graduation age, I would recommend that if you haven't bought one, you buy one of these, because if you want to officiate after you graduate and you start working high school events, then you'll have to have one of these anyway. So otherwise, for your middle school stuff, if you want to just get the plain one that's $20, it looks just like this. It just doesn't have like the WOA patch there or the American flag patch on the shoulder here. Okay. Black pants. I always recommend, if you don't have some black pants, or just get something polyester and inexpensive. You can get something at Walmart, TJ Maxx, something like that for like $12-13 probably. Polyester works better than denim or cotton. I've had these pants now for I think about 8 years. They're all still black. The knees, like we're doing a lot up and down on our knees and all that stuff, and you see that these don't look like they're worn out, do they? If these were denim, it would only take a few events before those knees would be like white, right? It would rub the black ink right out of it, or cotton and stuff. So, thing is, get a pair of inexpensive polyester pants. Okay. Black socks. Okay. Now, if your pants need a belt, black belt, and try to wear something that doesn't have real sharp edges on it, like a big rodeo champion buckle with the steer horns on it or something. Like, remember, you're on a wrestling mat, sometimes sliding around, on your stomach, and if you have like sharp edges on your belt buckle and you're like sliding along, you might be ripping somebody's mat, and those mats are pretty expensive. So, try to wear a belt that doesn't have pose some danger to the mat, okay? Black shoes, although for you guys in high school, you're not required to wear, you can wear wrestling shoes, and they can be whatever wrestling shoes you have. Now, do any of you have like those weird, like hot pink ones or anything goofy like that? All right, just blue or whatever, yeah, it's fine. So if you got just sort of a standard set of shoes, whatever color they are, is fine. It looks a little bit goofy if you had like those, what do they call them, the sissy shoes or whatever, they're pink and but otherwise, if you're in it for the long haul, then you get a pair of black shoes, because when you officiate, especially in a tournament, you're on your feet a long time. Wrestling shoes don't provide a lot of support for your feet, and your feet will get pretty doggone tired and worn out if you're not wearing something with some cushion to it, okay? Armbands, green on the right, red on the left, okay? You can get these at sporting goods stores. You can get all this equipment at Sound Athletic Supply is a place. It's located in Auburn area, between Federal Way and Auburn. You can call them, and go on their website and order from They don't have the ability to order, I think, through the website, but you can look at the stuff on the website and then you can call them. They'll send it to you for a few bucks, or if you want to just drive down there, you can drive down and get it. A whistle, black whistle, and then a black lanyard to go with it. This little lanyard's called a Smitty lanyard. It hooks to these shirts, have a little loop on them right there in the V neck. This thing hooks onto there, so you got just this little sort of short cord instead of a big thing around your neck. Okay, but black lanyard and black whistle, and then something, a disc or coin to flip. So they sell these things too, at places like Sound Athletic Supply, or if you get online at like Cliff Keen or something. But you don't want to buy something like this. You can just take a quarter or something and put green paint on one side and red paint on the other. Just something that you have to have so you can flip if you have to flip the disc. Yeah, I'll send you a list that tells you all this stuff as well. Okay. With information about Sound Athletic Supply. So that's sort of the basics of the uniform. Okay. So you got to invest a little bit of money in the uniform, but the uniform is very durable, and this stuff lasts a long, long time. Like all you wear it for is officiating wrestling, and this shirt I've had for like 3 years. These pants, like I said, I've had for 8 or 9 years. So you're gonna spend maybe you're gonna spend $50 or so to get the equipment. So after your first assignment, you can sort of make that back, and if you're making $500-600 on top of that, then you're good to go. Okay, and then next year you don't have to buy any of that stuff. Okay, all right. So let me hand you your rule books, your publications here. And all we'll do is I'll need to familiarize you a little bit with publications. These are the guiding publications for officiating for wrestling. Okay? All right. So these publications are published by the National Federation of High Schools. So if you look on the front cover here, up in the top center of the front cover, you see a little symbol there, NFHS. That's the National Federation. The National Federation has responsibility over the rules of all the sports in high school. So whether it's football, baseball, whatever, the NFHS publishes the official rules for the sports, okay? So, and it's NFHS when you see that blue and red symbol, okay? There are 2 publications you have. The purple one is the rules book. This is sort of the Bible, right? This defines all the things about the sport. And when you officiate, this is what is guiding you, and this is what's guiding competitors and coaches when they coach kids, like to follow these rules. The yellow covered book is what's called the referee's manual and the case book, okay? This book is a supplement to the rules. So I'll explain each of them, just give you an overview of them, all right? So take your purple book, the rules book, and open up to the second page. When guys have officiated, so this page here you should see. Okay, so when guys have officiated, the first thing they'll do is open it up to page 2 here, because what it says there, these are the wrestling rule changes for this year. So in other words, everything in this book is the same as last year except this stuff. So when you've learned the rules, and like I said, I've been officiating for almost 30 years now, I don't want to have to necessarily scrutinize everything that's written in this book to figure out what's different. Like they tell me what's different. So I can go, oh, okay, all I have to do is learn these different things now. Okay. On the page next to that, they have what's called these wrestling points of emphasis. The points of emphasis, every year, what the Federation does is they're getting reports from around the country. And so this book, right, covers the entire country, whether you're an official in Oklahoma or Iowa or New Jersey or Florida or California or Washington. All of us are operating off these books. Now, what happens is they're getting reports from around the nation. And when they're getting certain volume of certain kind of incidents or questions or whatever, then they sometimes publish what are called points of emphasis. So every year they have some points of emphasis that are designed to address things that they're hearing a lot of either complaints or questions or concerns about out in the country, right? So these are just things that when you see them, just tells you, like in this case, this year, they're talking about things like, covering braces and having pads on them, knee braces, or stalemate situations. Like what that means is there's been a lot of talk around the country about, hey, referees aren't calling stalemates the same way consistently, or they're not applying the rule on what's good enough padding on a knee brace, So the Federation then says, okay, well, look, when we publish the book next year, we're going to emphasize to everybody, hey, this is what it needs to be padded like this, or this is the difference between calling a stalemate or stalling in these situations. Okay, so that's sort of the first two things, just sort of describe to you some things that they're highlighting. If you turn the page, then the table of contents, what you'll see here is that the rule book is divided into 11 rules. You see rule 1 through 11 there. Okay, so one of the things to know about a rule book, and Max has seen this from last year, the rule book does not read like a storybook. So sometimes I get approached by, parents or fans or something in the aftermath of an event because they're mad about some call or what happened to their kid or something. And where can I get a rule book? Because they're convinced that if they had a rule book, they'd find something and prove me wrong, right? And it's sort of like, and I tell them, well, if you really, really want a rule book, I can tell you how to get one, but I can just tell you right now, what you think you're going to find in there, you're not going to find, because this isn't written like a story where it goes, okay, first Johnny walks out on the mat, and then Bill hits Johnny in the side of the head with a closed fist, and then the referee blows the whistle, and then he gives a penalty point, and then he shoots a single leg. It doesn't read that way. This book, it reads like a law book. So you see rule 1 says competition, right? Rule 2, equipment. It's not divided up, and it doesn't read like a story. It's divided up to say, okay, well, rule 1's all about a bunch of stuff that says a dual meet is, a series of 14 matches between wrestlers of as nearly equal weight as possible, right? Or that a wrestler can only represent his school in one weight class in a meet, right? Like, so that stuff's in rule 1. Rule 2, equipment, tells you things like, hey, the mat has to be 28-foot circle. It has to have a 10-foot center circle. The lines have to be 1 inch, on the starting lines in the middle. The lines on the outside have to be 2 inches, right? Like, it just tells you a bunch of stuff like that. So there isn't something that tells you, oh, this is how a match runs, and then when Johnny, shot in on the double leg and put him to his back, like there's the rule that I was looking for. That's not how this reads. Okay, so that's why when somebody goes, I want a rule book, it's sort of like, you wouldn't know what to do with it if I gave it to you. But if you really, really want one, I'll go get you one. So turn the page to page 6. So we'll just again give you an overview here. So page 6 is the start of the rules. It says rule 1. You see how it says rule 1, competition. So again, there's 11 general rules, just like the Constitution of the United States has like eight or 9 articles, right? Like, and they all sort of cover different things. One covers elections, one covers the presidency or whatever. Like, so it is with our rule book. There's 11 rules. So the nomenclature, the standard you need to be aware of when we talk about a rule is you have the rule, and then you see those black boxes that say section 1 match, section 2 dual meet, etc. So you got rule, and then underneath that you have one to many sections, and then underneath each section you see ART1, ART2, those are articles, okay? So you have rule, section, article. And then even under article, you can see under section 2 there, article 2, that there's an A, B, and C, like, and then it can go even further. There's an example in like rule 6 where, you know, it goes section, article, A, and then A1, A2, like, so that's the sequence. So when we talk about a rule and we reference it, what we'll reference is the rule number dash the section number dash the article. So if I talk about rule 1-2-1, then if you go down to section 2 and article 1, that's what I'm talking about. Rule 1-2-1, it says a series of matches, one in each of the NFHS weight classes constitutes a dual meet. Okay, so that's rule 1-2-1. So JJ, read me the first 5 words in rule 1-4-3. There you go. So that's how we refer to rules. Rule, section, article. Okay. So, and like I said, you can see that this isn't friendly reading to someone that isn't wanting to officiate. It's just a bunch of stuff that is a reference to us. You know, this is why we wouldn't have a dual meet with 16 matches. Where they go, okay, hey, how about if we throw 2 more guys out there and they count to the team score? No. Rule 1 tells us 14 matches. Sorry, we don't get to, and they have to be the NFHS weight classes. We don't, hey, can these 2 90-pound 8th graders count towards our team score? No, that's not one of the weights. That's not part of a dual meet. Okay. So now, Devin, tell me what the first few words of Rule 5-11-2 say. -11-2. There you go. So see how easy that is? So that's how the rule book's organized. Now, if we continue to leaf through this now, turn to page number 57. And on page 57, that's where you'll see that points of emphasis I was talking about. So for instance, they have a thing on off-the-scale activities. Off-the-scale activities have been identified as an area of concern, and a subsequent rule change brings the topic to prominence. Any activities that are conducted to either lose or gain weight are prohibited. So in other words, they were having problems because guys were waiting in line for weigh-in, and guys jumping rope or spitting, or he's trying to drink a bunch of water so he can get up to high enough weight class so that they can bump him up to whatever weight class they want to. So they had a rule change now, and they're emphasizing it because there must have been lots of complaints. Like coaches in other areas were complaining that, hey, this stuff's happening too much. Do something about it. Now, if you turn the page to page 59, you'll see on page 59 down at the middle of it, comments on the 2017-2018 rule changes. So all the changes in rules every year, they'll have a little commentary that sort of explains why are they making this change, or what's the nature of the change. Okay, so this is just sort of informational for you right now. Turn the page now to page 61. Page 61 through I think it's 80 are pages that have pictures. So you see those little diagrams, those little pictures of guys and stuff. These pictures are just illustrations of different rules. So if you look at a picture, like turn the page, so picture number 3 shows a guy outside a guy's head or whatever. Look down in parentheses. In parentheses underneath there is the reference to the rule that this is trying to illustrate. So rule 4-2-1 is one of the rules that deals with weigh-in and grooming and appearance. So this is just illustrating, this is, this hair is legal, right? So it's just trying to show you a picture because, you know, the rule will say, well, the hair can't go below the eyebrows. In the back, it can't extend beyond where a normal collar would be. It can't be below the ear lobe or whatever. So they're just showing you a picture now so you can go, oh, okay, that hair isn't too far in the back there. If it comes down to like here, well, that's okay. That's so that's what these pictures are for. You see these other pictures of guy getting pinned over here, or guy sitting out and all that stuff. Like again, it's just illustrating certain rules to say this is a picture to show you what we mean when we talk about that rule. Okay, so the pictures are very helpful, especially for newer officials, or sometimes we have people who are learning to officiate the sport of wrestling that they weren't big wrestlers themselves, and so sometimes they don't know what it means when someone says can't do a straight scissor to the head. And they, what's a scissor? Well, they might look at the picture in the back. Oh, okay, that's what a leg scissor is. Okay, so pictures are helpful illustrations. All right, turn to page number 81. So page 81 and 82, those are the signal charts that we use as officials. So, and these are important because the mechanics of officiating are the things you'll have to get used to. Again, you already understand the sport of wrestling, and now you have to get used to being the guy making the calls, signaling the points, and blowing the whistle and all that stuff. So these signals are the signals you need to learn. And learn the ones that are in the book here and practice these, okay? Because what can be really confusing to fans and to table workers and stuff are guys that don't use these signals and they do other things. So for instance, the signal for starting wrestling is just the hand goes up, whoop, like that. Now, watch these guys, and you're going to see this stuff, and it bugs me too, as a guy that officiates and trains people to, officiate. Like guys that start, a match like, well, the reason that we have a signal where we go like this is because we're blowing a whistle and arm up, because sometimes you're in a place like the Tacoma Dome where the guy sitting at the table, he can't hear you because there's so much noise going on in there, right? So he sees this. If he doesn't hear the whistle, he sees that. He knows that started action. Well, if your signal for starting action is this, he might not see that, right? So, or we had a case last year in the state finals, 4A state finals. So I was working the 4A state finals, right? And I'm watching the guy who's officiating the 138-pound final. I'm not on the mat at that time, and the guy that's officiating, he causes the kid from Puyallup to false start twice. And why? Because he's not using the official signal. So guy from South Kitsap gets in position on bottom, fine. Tells the guy on top to get on top. Guy gets on top. And what his signal for starting was this. He'd put his hand up here, and then he would blow the whistle and do something like that. Well, this kid from Puyallup is watching him because he gets on top, and this guy's going like this, but he hasn't blown the whistle yet because he's lifting his hand up to here, and then, well, that kid from Puyallup sees him lifting his hand up. I mean, because the signal for start is this. So he sees him lifting, he starts moving. Caution. So put him in position again. He starts doing this again, and the kid jumps again. Twice in a, now the coach is out of the chair, right? Like complaining because he's about to cost his kid a point if this happens again. And he's telling the official, "You're doing that to my kid. Like you keep doing this, and then you haven't blown the whistle yet." So his stupid non-standard signal. Here we are in the state finals. Like we don't need a kid who's wrestling for the state title to be worried now about the official because the official is using goofy mechanics. Like he has his hands full enough wrestling his opponent. He doesn't need to be thinking about you as an official. So, and when you're in the dome, for instance, you're sitting there looking at a mat from on the upper level, and you see a guy go like this. You're thinking, well, he's starting the match or whatever. So, just use the signals that are in here, and you stay out of trouble. Okay. When you stop using these signals, well, then, I mean, I don't know anybody in football that ever does anything for a touchdown other than this. right? We don't have guys going or some goofy thing, right? But in wrestling, for some reason, guys think they have a license to do whatever sort of things they want sometimes and not follow these signals. So in our association, follow these signals, okay? So what you'll do is, for those of you that are new, and even Max, you're only 1 year experience, get in front of a mirror between now and next week. Start learning to apply these signals, okay? Because I guarantee you, and you can support me on this, Max, whether or not this is true for you. This is actually one of the harder things you have to do initially because you're having to think about things like, green just scored, and you're like, oops, that's the red armband. It's just stuff that you're not used to doing, and suddenly, something happens and you forget to do the signal because it's not second nature to you yet. Is that kind of true? Yeah. So usually, and I'll check this with you as well. I think normally it's about towards the end of the second event you officiate where you finally hit your groove. Yeah, where you stop having to think so hard about like, oh, don't forget to put the points up for the take or the signal near fall. Like like you stop fixating on that stuff because you've done it enough times now where it's like, okay, yeah, too near fall red, whatever. You're not going too near fall like, oh, and then I have to do the like, so it'll come to you, but practice these signals in front of a mirror. So just stand there in front of the mirror and start, stop. That's the signal for stop. Uh, Reversal. Okay. So just practice those signals. Start to get them ingrained in your head. Okay. All right. And then that's sort of the rule book. That's all the stuff we'll cover in there for now. Again, we're not going to go through the rule book rule by rule. This is something you need to start looking at yourself because part of what you're expected to do is be the judge, and a judge that doesn't know his laws would be like not a very good judge in court, right? So we got to learn these rules. And like I said, you already know 80% of it, but there's stuff you don't know because you haven't officiated. So the other book here, we'll just cover this briefly, the case book and referee's manual. So if you open this up and you look at page 2, and you'll see the table of contents where it says part 2, other situations. So that's aligned the same way, organized the same way as the rule book, rules 1 through 11. And what this first half of this book is called a case manual. What the case manual does, just like those pictures would illustrate in the back of this, like, okay, this is legal hair, or, that's a legal starting position, or, something like that. What the cases are doing is they're illustrating examples of how to apply the rules. So the cases will give you a situation, they'll pose the situation to you, and then you can sit there and go, okay, so what should my ruling be? And then they'll tell you what the ruling is. Okay, so give you an example. And the way we refer to cases, so in rules, we said 5-11-2. That's rule 5-11-2 is the near fall rule. Devin read that to us. In the case manual, the way they refer to these things is instead of dash, it's dot. Like if I said, so if I pick a case, and then I'll have you sort of open up to this. Case 5.10. So see if you can, what rule do you think that's referring to? Rule 5 or case 5.10. So 5.10. So it's on, yeah, it's on page 24. I'll give you a hint. Yeah, so it's the escape rule. So it's rule 5-10 that it's dealing with, which rule 5-10 in the purple book is the rule on escapes. And so case 5.10 is a case dealing with rule 5-10. So that's how you know what rule they're talking about. So we'll give you an example here of situation B, right? I'll read this to you. When the defensive wrestler is able to stand, turn, and face his opponent, when does loss of control for an escape occur? This is in reference to the offensive wrestler having hands locked around the upper body, okay? So, in other words, I'm on top, my opponent stood up, he turns, but I've got a bear lock on him still. So he's facing me, standing up, but I got this bear lock on him. So, what does the ruling say? Well, when the bottom wrestler is able to stand, turn, and break the locked hands and separate them to the point that they both cross the middle of the back, okay, then control is lost and an escape shall be awarded. So in other words, they're giving you an illustration of a real life kind of situation you might see. Kid stands up, his opponent turns, he's locked on him. He's not letting it. Well, if I got this lock, what they're saying is I still have control. There's no escape yet. Even though the guy stood and faced me, I still have him. But if he's like pushing his hips away, okay, once this happens, now we're facing each other, we're standing, and now that case is saying, now we have an escape because now he's free of my control. Okay, so that's what the case manual. So you can use this case manual to sort of test yourself as an official. You can look at some of those cases, and this would be kind of humbling, actually. So this is a good exercise tonight when you get home. Just crack this open, find something that you're sort of interested in, like escape, near fall, takedown, something sort of standard, right? And read yourself some of those situations, but don't look at the ruling. So first read the situation and go, should I award a takedown there? Is that a near fall or whatever, like, or how many points for near fall? So read the situation, see what your answer is, then look at the ruling and see if you got it right. And it could be kind of humbling because you might go, oh, I got that wrong. Or, gosh, I don't know what to rule there. So take a couple, do a couple of those case situations when you get home tonight. Just test yourself, see whether or not you know enough to answer some of those right off the bat. Okay. Now turn to page 71. We won't dwell on this too much. I just want to share it with you to let you know it exists. This is where the referee's manual is located. So the rest of the book from 71 onward is the referee's manual. This section of the book is just to help try to standardize how referees do their duties, because there are officials all over the country. So what they want to avoid is that somehow in Michigan, what they do and how they officiate somehow is much different than what they're doing in Oregon. Like we should all be sort of the same, okay? So the referee's manual just gives referees some standardization on some mechanics, some techniques, some interpretations, so that we're more uniform with each other. So you don't need to worry too much about that. The thing about these two publications, the Purple Book, your rules, this is the Bible. This overrules this takes precedence over everything. The case manual comes close to having the power of rule, because again, these are applications of the rules. So when the case manual has a situation that says, well, when this happens, this is the official ruling, that kind of carries the weight of the rule itself, right? Because it's just an illustration or an example of that rule. But this dominates everything else. The Purple Book dominates everything else. So just keep that in mind. The cases are just specific situations of rules. The rule is the actual source, the actual reference, okay? All right, so those are your publications. Just take a little time to sort of browse through them between now and tonight. Go look at some of the cases, and then take some time to just browse through and start skimming them a little bit between now and our next session next week, okay? All right, any questions about the publications? Just be aware that, this isn't going to happen to you probably, but it will happen to me as an adult official, that some coach may say, you may be holding a rule book. hey, right here. Like I had this happen at a tournament at Edmonds Woodway this season. Coach from Southbridge, this kid got taken down. I was the head official. He wanted to protest. I come over to that mat, find out what's wrong. Oh, my kid, he explains, the referee explains the situation. Then I talk to the coach. He explains the situation. Okay, your two explanations match. And then I explain to the coach, no, the referee was right. That is a takedown. He said, how's that a takedown? I said, the offensive guy's feet weren't even in bounds or whatever. Like, I know, but your guy who got taken down, he was in bounds, and the other guy went around behind him to complete the takedown. And so he gets the takedown even though he's out of bounds because your guy's still in bounds. That's not what the rule says. I said, no, actually, Rule 5-25, I'm just like quoting it to you right now. Like, that's the takedown rule. No. I'll show you if you want. Yeah, okay. I took the rule book out. We were turned to rule 5-25. I read it for him. They're like, well, wait a minute, let me see that. He's like yeah, it's what I told you. Like, well, I thought that. I know you thought that. I said, but that's not what the rule says, right?
dash every section back of your hand.
Not completely like the back of my hand, but I know this probably as well as anybody. My nickname is By the Book Bob, so I have a reputation. I do know what's in here. I've read this thing cover to cover 1,000 times, and so I understand what's in there. All right. So anyway, but as an official, when you get to be an experienced official, you have to be ready for those, situations where somebody wants to, challenge you, and you have to be ready to tell them what the rule is. Okay. All right. Uh, so wrap this part up. So a couple principles I want to explain to you about officiating that I want you to take to heart. Okay. Again, this goes back to I want guys to enter in the right spirit. Right. First thing I want you to keep in mind, you are a servant. Okay. It's not about you. So how many of you have ever watched like a baseball umpire with the big, they or the flamboyant signals, right? Like, what are they doing when they do that? Hey, look at me. Why can't he just go strike? Because if he did that, nobody would pay attention to him. But actually, what the referee's manual tells us, I like the phrase they use. They say, "The good official notices everything and is seldom noticed." Right. So when I tell this story when I train guys, right? Like I officiated a match at the All SPSL tournament a few years ago, and it was a tremendous match, really, really good match. The two-time state champion from Ording facing this kid from Lakes that was really athletic, and they were going at it, and it was tight, and there was a lot of close calls, and lots of calls that people could have gone, oh, I don't really agree with how that official just did that, right? But the match got decided ultimately. The Ording kid lost by 1 point because the Lakes kid taking him down and as the Oregon kid's trying to, prevent the takedown, they're near the edge of the mat, and he sees that line and he starts jumping towards it. So he wasn't like doing a legitimate defense. He was trying to get the hell out of bounds before this guy could secure a takedown, and because he's leading by 2 at the moment. And this guy's got him pretty good, and he jumps out to try to get out, and that guy is able to cinch the other leg, and the Oregon guy's out of bounds, but the Lakes guy's still in bounds. Has got both his legs and has got a position where it's like there's 2 green, and then as he starts to pull up and get on top of him, and out of bounds, and we got 1 green, technical violation on red for fleeing the mat. So suddenly he's behind by 1 point. There's only like 20 seconds left, right? And so, that call, like, very controversial, right? Like, the whole match got decided on that. And this entire match, like, if you've been at Auburn High School, right, in their gym, everybody was watching this match. I could feel it, right? I'm officiating. I can hear all the oohs and ahs and all that stuff because everybody, and they're crowding around that mat. Like, this is the match. Everybody in the gym is watching. So they see this, right? And they see that that's how the match gets decided. Not a single person in that gym did I hear like, oh, that ref screwed that up. I can't believe the ref gave that away or whatever. Like, none of that stuff. People were just like enthralled with the match. It was great. The next day, I'm the assistant official for a guy in the semifinals who is making all sorts of controversial calls and he's screwing up some stuff, and the entire gym is like watching this match, and they're watching him, and I can hear the people, even when I'm on the mat assisting him, the coach is taking him to the table again, like, and the whole match, like, it was another close match, controversial, and in the end, everybody, all they cared about was like, that official must have screwed everything up, because that's all they were talking about. I can't believe that ref. Yeah, he lost control of that match. Like, so the good ref notices everything and is seldom noticed. I was seldom noticed. That guy was noticed by everybody. You don't want to be that guy. So number one, just remember it's not about you. Don't do things to call attention to yourself. Like I used to get mad. I used to get mad when I see officials like get mad at kids and do things like that. stalling, green, like, fine, he's stalling, penalize him, but get worked up and like get mad at him and yelling at him and stuff like that calls attention to the official the wrong way. That's one. Number two, because we're the judge, we have to know the rules and we got to apply them consistently. You may not be perfect when you apply the rules and especially when you're new, but just try to be consistent. If what you call out of bounds or a takedown or whatever, even if it's not precisely right, like if a guy like me would look and go, yeah, that's not really correct, coaches will be okay as long as you do it consistently. Same way how many of you play baseball? Sometimes this far off the plate is a strike, isn't it? As long as it's always a strike, you adjust and you deal with it. And your coach doesn't get mad. They get mad when it's a strike, when it's that far against you, and it's a ball when it's the other team. So, same for us. Like, just be consistent. Try to be as consistent as you can. The better you get, the more you'll know the rules. Third thing, seek to get it right, even if it means admitting you made a mistake, okay? So, you might make mistakes, and if you do, just own up to it. I was officiating a match, 2 of them this season, like same night, double duel. Guys in a pinning situation, and the defensive guy's out of bounds. His shoulders are all the way out. He's all out. The only thing inside the boundary line is like the top of his head, but the guy who's pinning him is inbounds. Well, he's trying to pin him. He's trying to get chest to chest. He starts moving around. Here's the boundary line. Uh-oh. Now he's starting to get close to that boundary line. Like he's about to slide out himself. So I'm watching, counting, and then I'm watching this guy, and sure enough, he slides his knee out. And when I blow the whistle, it's at that moment that I realized that when he was moving around like the defensive guy, it was like sliding. Now his shoulders were in. So even though the offensive guy was out, the defensive guy was now in. And I blew the whistle, and the first thing is I look at the coach and they're like, I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Like, I messed that up. Like, it's 3 near fault. I should have never stopped it. Right? Like, so you just admit it when you get it wrong. What gets coaches really mad and gets officials in trouble is when they make stuff up because they don't want to admit they did something wrong. Okay? So if you do something wrong, these coaches at this level, they work with us. I think, was your experience good in terms of coaches didn't try to run you out of the gym or they disagree, and sometimes they may say to you, hey, you got to be careful about this, or that's not really a takedown or whatever, like, but they don't like try to tear you apart. They're trying to help you actually when they say that stuff, right? So that you'll do a better job in their eyes next time. But the thing is, just try to get it right, and if you did something wrong, just I'm sorry, I guess maybe I did mess that up. Okay. And then the fourth thing, use some discretion and common sense. There's not this. See how thick this book is? There's actually 1 billion different situations. Well, if we covered 1 billion situations, this book would be to the moon, right? So there's a lot of empty space in here that you just got to fill because you know the rules and you just use common sense where there isn't a rule or a situation that perfectly fits yours. Okay? So 4 things I want you to keep in mind. Remember, it's not about you. It's about the kids, right? We're serving the sport. Number 2, learn the rules and apply them consistently. Apply them correctly. Try to be perfect, but if you're not perfect, at least be consistent. Number 3, try to get it right, and if you do something wrong, admit your error and correct it if you can. Like, I had a situation in a regional tournament, consolation semifinal, winner goes to state, loser's not. This is an important match, right? And I have an assistant official. And in the sport of wrestling, oftentimes, 95% of the time, we do not have an assistant official, right? How many times did you ever work 2-man mechanics, Max? At the very beginning. But then when I sent you off to dual meets all by yourself, how many times? Never, right? So you're out there by yourself. You just have to, and you operate that way. Well, I have an assistant official, but 95% of the time I don't, and so I'm just used to making the calls. And oh, wait a second, he's there. Like I could have consulted with him. So consolation semifinal, Enum Claw kid, Yelm kid, winners going to state, losers going to be alternate at best. So less than 30 seconds left in the match. Enum Claw kid winning. Yelm kid is trying to get a takedown. Gets him. Kid goes down, touches hands for an instant, comes back up, and I'm signal 2 for Yelm, and then they go out of bounds, and there's like literally like 10 seconds left. Yelm's winning by a point now, and then it's like, oh, there's my assistant. Like, Steve, did you have 2 there? He goes, no. Like, uh-oh. And we talked about it, and I realized he's right. No takedown. What? And 10 seconds left in the match, they line up again, and of course, the no takedown happens, so the kid loses now. So he was just on his way to state a few seconds earlier, but now I've got to overturn the call because it was the wrong call. Now I could have just acted like, oh, nobody will know better. I mean, somebody's not going to be unhappy, but the thing is, it looked worse, right, for me to go, oh, no takedown, take that off the board, right? Like, don't let that kid go to state. I want this kid to go to state. That's sort of like, if you're a fan, like, that's what you're thinking, right? Like, but it was the wrong call. My assistant helped me understand it, and we corrected it. Thankfully, we could correct it. I want the right guy to win. So, try to get it right, and if that means you have to admit you made an error so that you can correct it, do that, okay? And then the last thing, use your discretion and common sense. Not everything's covered in the book. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send you guys an email. It'll have your homework for next time. There's a series of videos that you're going to watch. They're on what I call the building blocks of wrestling, okay? There's 3 building blocks I want you to understand, and you're going to see this in the videos, okay? First is what we call supporting points, okay? Supporting points are a key thing in wrestling because they basically define where is a wrestler, okay? The second building block is what's called inbounds and out of bounds rule. So in every sport that has boundary lines, this is important, and it's very important in our sport. When are they in and when are they out, okay? And then the third is on what's called the concept of control. Control is at the heart of every of the main scoring maneuvers in wrestling. Takedowns, reversals, escapes, near falls. Control is an important element of all of those. So if you learn these 3 building blocks, you're going to get a lot of calls right. I have young officials that they're very young, and they do a great job. Guys like Max go out and do a great job because if you learn these 3 building blocks and you go and apply them, you're going to get your calls right in situations where people think, oh, it's so hard to make the takedown call. It's not that hard, actually. If you learn these concepts, it's a pretty straightforward exercise normally, okay? So young guys that do a great job, I get good feedback from coaches, and, some of these young guys, they excel. We have a guy who's going to be officiating the state tournament this year. He's 20 years old. He's going to be down in the Dome at Matt Classic. You may even know him. Kale Wojvodich, you know him? So Kale wrestled for like the Kent Cougars, when he was growing up, and he graduated from Foster High School 3 years ago now. He was a 4-time state place winner himself out of Foster. He's been wrestling his whole life. Knows a lot of guys, like, again, in the Kent area because he wrestled there with those guys. But he's in his 3rd year of officiating. He has earned a spot to go officiate at Matt Classic in a week. He's going to be on the mats, a guy not much older than you. It is going to blow people's minds when they see this. But he is an outstanding young official. And he takes all this stuff to heart, and he has jumped over the top of guys that have been officiating 20, 25 years. He's just better than them. So this stuff, I've trained a lot of guys on how to officiate, trained over 200 guys on how to officiate. I've figured out what some of the key things are for that to happen. And young guys like Kale, good example, going to state tournament in his 3rd year. My son, he's a junior at UW along with Kale. This 2nd year, he's officiating regionals. So you guys, you'll learn this training, you'll apply it, you'll do fine, okay? So I'll send you a note with all the homework. You got to have that stuff done by the time we meet next time, okay? Because next Tuesday, we're going to do hands-on demonstration stuff. That's when we'll want to go in the room next time. All right, Devin. Good to meet you. JJ, good to meet you. We'll be in touch.
All right, man. I'll see you on Saturday, actually. I think you're officiating something.